Hello everyone, this is Kazam, and I'm bringing you Brain Bite number 4, creating a custom shape. And this would be for a clothing item. Okay, let's imagine that you have a scene where you have put a model in exactly the pose you want, and you have exactly the garment that you want her to be wearing, but there is no morph associated with that garment that will do exactly what you want it to do. There's a fairly easy way to fix this. It's actually it's going to be using DAZ Studio. I've got 4.11 here, and I'm going to be using Blender Release Candidate 2.8. If you don't have Blender, pause the video, go to blender.org, and download the 2.8 release candidate, and we'll be here when you get back. In the meantime, here we are. We have our Genesis 8 figure posed, and what we're going to try to accomplish is have her playfully pulling the side of her panties out, hooked on her finger here. Okay, kind of a copper tone girl sort of a thing. All right, so make sure that you have the model in the pose that you want her. All right, and if it's Genesis 8, I'm going to tell you right now, see these eyelashes? Get rid of them. Okay, just hide them. Actually, make sure you hide them. If it's, yeah, hide them. Okay, don't delete them because you probably want those eyelashes in your scene. But make sure that they're not visible. Okay, because what will happen is you'll forget when you export the panties, which we're going to do right now. Okay, I've already got the Genesis 8 female uh, export. Well, actually, you know what? Let me go through that too. Sorry, I want to make sure that I don't assume that you know any given thing. All right. So now we have our Genesis 8 female selected. We're going to hide the panties. We're going to export her at base resolution. Okay, so let's go down here, make sure that she is at base resolution. All right, file, export, and we're going to call her G8 base. Okay, I'm going to overwrite that file. There is a preset here, a default preset for Blender. Okay, you need to change that preset because Daz has forgotten to convert this. All you have to do is switch it, just like I did. Z will automatically go to Z. Then save your preset, give it whatever name you want. I've already called mine Blender Export. Okay, and that's it right there. Hit accept. And now that's exported. Okay, now we will hide her, and you want to make sure that the eyelashes are also hidden. Okay, don't forget to do that. It will cause a problem if you don't. Now we have the panties visible, and that's all that's visible. We're going to export. I'm just going to call it left panty pull. I've been through this a couple of times practicing to make sure that I don't run into any really bad problems. Okay, yes, we're going to overwrite the file. And another thing, make sure you have ignore invisible nodes selected. I probably should have told you that when we did the Genesis 8 female, but you want to make sure that you have that selected. I don't think it is by default. Blender export YYZZ, we're good. Export. Okay, now here we are in Blender 2.8. This is your default startup file when you fire up Blender. All right, we don't want any of this in the scene. Let me make sure that my screencast keys are on. Okay, that toggled them off actually. There we go. Take a look over here if you want to see how I did something. This will tell you every key I press. It'll tell you if I scroll the mouse wheel, it'll tell you all that stuff. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to hit A to select everything, X, delete. We don't want anything else in the scene. So now we have an empty file. In Blender, the y-axis is colored green, just like it is in DAZ, but it's for depth, front to back. X is the same. Z is your vertical in Blender. Keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and import our stuff. Okay. Wave front, keep vert order, check poly groups. Okay. That's what you want to do. G8 base, we'll import that. And there she is. And there's nothing else in the scene. We're making sure of that. Okay, I just hit A to deselect her. File, import, wavefront, left panty pull. The OBJ, not the MTL file. That's a material file. You want the OBJ file. Okay, import. And there we go. Now you can see that we have straight mesh objects that, oops, shouldn't click that, that exactly duplicate what's going on here. By the way, let me kill that process before it gets in there and messes this up. There we go. Okay, so back to Blender. We need to pull this out and hook it behind that finger. Okay, and we have the model in her pose in this just so that we know that we've got this exactly right. Okay, so I right clicked. You can right click to select in Blender. That is changeable. You can change that in your user preferences, but I've been using right click for 7 or 8, 9 years, something like that, and it's just muscle memory for me now. So I just keep it that way. Edit mode. See, all our vertices are selected. We point one other thing out to you because we're making something. If you use this to make a morph file, this is particularly important. Okay. You see your number of vertices here, 1252. That and the way in which these vertices are connected to each other are what define your vertex order. That must remain unchanged. You cannot change that. If you do, DAZ will not load it as a morph. Now, this is not a morph tutorial, but it uses many of the same techniques, and so I thought I would go ahead and give you the heads up on that. All right, let's go to side view. We're in perspective side view. If I hit 5 on my keypad, we're in orthographic, but perspective works better for this particular project. We want to make sure she's pulling that straight out to the side. Okay. Up here is proportional editing. Make sure that that's turned on. And here you want to check to see that you have median point selected. Okay. Now we're just going to grab this on the x-axis, and do you see that I'm scrolling the mouse wheel to make that proportional size smaller or bigger. If I start pulling that out on the x-axis and scroll that wheel, it adjusts how much of the mesh is pulled. See that? So I left clicked to commit it, and we'll see what that looks like. That actually doesn't look terrible at all. Okay. However, we want to straighten this out. The point from here to there and from here to there shouldn't be rounded. It should be sharp and straight. So we're going to fix that. First, I want to make sure that I get my vertex down here where it's going to be hooked behind. Yeah, let's hook it behind the smallest knuckle there. Okay, we're going to rotate this on the Z just a bit, or on the X, I'm sorry, rotate X. Okay, so now we're rotating that. Now we're going to rotate it on the Z. And what we're doing here is we're just making the mesh conform to our custom pose. That's what that's about. Okay, now we'll grab this and we're going to scroll down and just straighten that out a little bit. And actually, what we want to do, we'll get a tiny bit fancy with this. Let's grab Z, like so. Okay. Actually, that's not going to work because the pose isn't that way, but it's all right. Okay. Back to where we were. We want to straighten this out from this point back here right to where it leaves her butt cheek, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to hit Z, go to wireframe mode. That will allow us to select through and get all the vertices. I hit C to go to circle select, and I'm just going to hold down the left mouse, and swipe all of that. Now we have all that selected. Let's go back to solid mode. We're going to hit the W key that brings up this menu, and we want to smooth vertices. Okay. See what this popped up over here, smooth vertices? It's a little sub-menu. You can change which axes it's smoothing on, leave them all or none. You can change the strength of the smoothing. 0.5 or somewhere thereabouts is usually pretty good. And then you can just click up your iterations. And that's where you begin to see where you want your axes to be properly selected. You see how this is just making it way too string thin? Okay, Y, Z, no, X, nope. Looks like we want to take out the Y. And you can see where that's beginning to smooth it, believe it or not, on the Y, which is kind of weird. But what the mesh thinks is Y and what the world thinks is Y are not necessarily the same thing. Okay, so now let's just select that. We'll just do a grab, and we're going to lock out the Z axis. I'm going to hold down Shift, press Z, and now it won't move vertically up and down. It'll just move on the horizontal, on two axes. I'm just going to go ahead and move this in. Looks pretty good back through here. Let's see if we can, again, we're going to lock out the Z, maybe make that a little bit smaller, no, a little bigger. Bring that in. Boom. And there we go. Now let's grab it on, or actually let's rotate it like so. I did a rotate freehand. I didn't lock out or define any axes on that. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to rotate it and then maybe grab it on the Z, bring it down a touch. And now that's looking fairly decent. Now I won't mess with that for the time being. I can smooth these verts again one more time. And you can see where it moved this for us. No big deal. Let's just do a freehand grab. Bring it over to where it was. Okay. We'll just grab it. Okay. So it's a little bit of an iterative process. You just kind of have to keep tweaking things until you get it in the right shape, which is exactly what you're always going to want to do. And you want to make a good render. You're always going to do this. Let's rotate it on the X. And I granted, this is really, I'm not going to say it's a topic for advanced users. It's a topic that makes you a more advanced user, okay, of DAZ Studio and 3D in general. This is how you learn. Don't mean to speak to you as if you're a child. It's just, I don't want anybody to think that this is anything, super advanced or super simple. It's not super simple to do. It's easy to do, but everything's easy once you know how. That's the whole key here. We're trying to teach you how. I'm trying to teach you how so that it becomes easy. And most of what we learn when we watch tutorials, as most of you probably realize, most of what we really learn, and it's just a human nature thing, of course, are things that are ancillary to what the actual lesson is. Yes, I'm teaching you the techniques, but the things that you watch and see me do that I don't even talk about, oops, I didn't want to do that. There we go. Are things that all of a sudden a light comes on. Ta-da! I was wondering about how to do that. And you saw it get done, and lo and behold, now you know how to do it. And there's no way to cover all of those things, and particularly not in a YouTube video. Okay, C for circle select again. Okay, we're going to get some of this out. I'm going to take a little bit of time here, folks. I don't want anybody to get impatient because this is definitely worth your time, I think. I wish somebody had taught me this. I had to learn it on my own. W, smooth vertices. We're going to try only on the Z. Nope, let's put the Y in there. Nope, we don't want the Y in there. Let's take away the Z and then just do only the X. Does it want to do that? Nope. And again, what the mesh feels as a given axis is not necessarily what that axis is to your eye. So here's what I'm going to do. There's always a way to fix anything in Blend, or meaning there's always more than one way to do something. Okay, let me go back and do what I just did again. I right click the select, then I hold down the control key, hold it down and right click there, and it selects everything on the shortest route. Okay, I'm going to grab that on the Z. Actually, I want to turn off proportional editing for this. Grab this on the Z, okay, to where it's out of the way. Now we're going to scale it on the Z. You see where it starts flattening it out? Like so. And now we're going to grab it on the Z again. Okay. We're going to grab it on the Z some more. And now we'll smooth it. Okay. Make sure we do that on the Z axis. We don't want it smoothed on the X, obviously, from the way that turned out. Maybe run up a few more iterations. Okay. And now let's grab Z, ease it on up there. Now we have something that might sort of work. These actually look okay to about here. So I hit circle select and held down the mouse wheel and swipe. That deselects. Okay. Now we have these three reprobates, 4 reprobates. There we go. And we can just, hold down the shift key, grab a few of these, grab Z, bring it down, just kind of even things out there a little bit. Okay, now I didn't do that in wireframe because I think I've got a pretty good view angle. All right, now smooth them. Okay, looks much better. Okay, it looks much better from the top and bottom. It's more or less from the side. What's going to handle the rest of that for us is when you apply a smoothing modifier to this mesh, when you get it back to DAZ and set the collision, it's going to actually smooth a lot of that out for you right there. And that's one thing that DAZ is actually pretty good at. Okay, so let's hit Z and make sure we don't have anything selected other than those. Okay, we're good. I'm going to turn proportional editing back on. Grab this on the Y and bring it out. And that looks I think that looks fairly good. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm trying to keep this video from being more than, 8 hours long or something. That's a joke. It won't be that long. Okay, here, right here, it's too high. Let's grab that on the Z. Proportional editing turned way down. Right there. Grab Z. Right there. Okay, that's looking pretty good on the horizontal. Pretty good. This is a little bit higher. Oops, higher than it should be. Okay, and that's not bad. Actually, for just a quick tutorial, that is not bad at all. Now we have a custom shape. See, I've got this riding up higher. That's not an error. If you look, that's where her glute comes out the furthest. So it's going to hold on to it all the way up to about here. Then it's going to stretch out and be more or less straight, although the fabric will in some places be a little bit thicker up down than others. So that's actually kind of realistic. So we'll hit object mode there, see what it looks like. Okay, and that looks pretty good. Remember, this is base resolution, okay, and we don't have a smoothing modifier of any kind applied. This is actually just conformed straight to a mesh. So when we apply some of those corrections, I see something right there. Do you guys see it? Edit, right there. Okay, let's freehand that. I think I went too far. Control Z. Yeah, let me get that angle where I first saw it. You can see where it just kind of bulges out a little bit there. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to grab it on the Y, and here's another trick in Blender. Hold down your Shift key, and it gives you a very fine-tuned control. It does things in very small increments. Okay, let's grab it on the Y again, going back the other way because we went a little bit too far with it. There we go. Now we've got this, and let me dolly in a little bit here so we can see it. Come on. Okay, you see that? We're going to rotate that. Actually, I need to rotate it. Sneak one in back there. There it is. Okay, let's rotate that. And now let's grab the whole thing on the Z. Go in a little bit. Well, a little bit further out. Now let's see what that did to the rest of things. Are we good? I think we're good. And see, I'm just tweaking here. I hope I'm not wasting too much y'all's time. But if you're watching, I'm sorry, let me get rid of that. If you're watching what's happening over here and watching what I do, uh, even when I seem to lose track of things and forget that you're even listening, that's probably when you'll learn a few things that aren't even announced in this video description. Okay. All right, I'm going to quit futzing with it right there because I think it looks pretty good. We're going to go back to object mode. Okay. We're going to check. Okay, we've still got this button here is your material groups. These are your materials. These are your vertex groups. Vertex groups equate to bones in DAS. Okay. Here are your materials. So these are your surfaces. Okay, and you want to make sure that they still have the same name. Because sometimes Blender, depending on the context, will change the name. It'll append a .001 after it or something. You want to make sure when you export it, just to save yourself some headache, that these are okay. If not, you can edit them right there. Okay. Anyway, oops, got it. Let's do a file export wavefront. Okay, I have a riggable DAS preset here. Really the only thing important about it as far as this goes, you want to look down here, Y up, which is what it is in DAS, okay, minus Z forward, which is what it is in DAS. And this is really important, selection only. Export it. Now let's go into our DAS Studio. We'll hide these. Let's bring her back. And we don't have to have anything selected. This is not going to be a fit to, this is not going to be transfer utility, any of that. We're simply bringing a mesh in that we have adapted to be in a specific point in space for this custom pose on this file that you want. Oops, what did I export that as anyway? See, here I was talking, and I forgot to pay attention. It's untitled. And it wasn't even in the right place. Here we go. Let's do a left panty pull.obj. There we go. Export. All right, now we know where we are. File, import. Okay. Left panty pull. All right, so here we go. We got to have, I've got fixed Blender. It's not really broken. It's just this axis thing again. Let's just say accept. And there we are. Now you can see that we have this exactly where we want it. Okay. And what we're going to do, well, let me do this. Let's go to textures over here. You see this? Because we made sure the surfaces were correct, it applied the textures. See that? Even though it's not a saved prop asset, because the materials, the surfaces had the name, the correct name, it just went ahead and applied those presets. So you're good to go there. All right. But that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead, and we have the object selected, right? Let us go ahead and put a subdivision surface on it, or a subsurf as we call it in the Blender world. Okay, so that smoothed a lot of that stuff out. You see it? Let's do another. Here, let's put the red mat on. That's going to stand out better so you can see. That really smoothed things out a lot. But we also want it to collide with this object. We're not going to be changing this pose, but it's just going to look better if we make it collide. And what we need to do for that is say Edit, Object, Geometry, Add Smoothing Modifier. Okay. Now we're going to come down here and we're going to set our collision item to our character, hit accept. All right. And now there should be no poke through or anything like that. And what we'll do, let me dolly in here. If you want it to look really tight and stretched good, here's what you do. We go to our, wake up, Bill. We go to our scale. We scale it down just a few points. See that? Now let the smoothing modifier do its thing and you've got everything really snug. Now you've got a pretty good looking custom shape. Pretty good looking. We could have probably changed. We could have messed with that a little bit right there in Blender and it would have looked better. But guess what? Now that you know how, all you have to do is pop back over to your Blender. I'm sorry if this video is running a ways, guys, but I'm trying to teach people that I'm not an expert at anything, but I'm trying to teach people a few little things that I know so that, we can all make better renders and stuff. Okay, you see that? You just bring that in. Maybe bring it in a little bit right here, grabbing it on the Y. And there you go. All right. And now you see how if we were to go ahead and grab Y, that's more or less straightened out. And see, that's all you would have to do. Go ahead and re-export it, pop it back in over at Blender, and you fix that. That's how easy it is to do that stuff. Pretty cool. We won't bother with it right now. And there I go again. Trying to start up 4.12. Let me kill that process real quick over here. All right, good. 4.11. At any rate, there you are, folks. That's your tutorial. We now have a custom shape for a custom pose that you wanted that the content artist foolishly did not provide for you. It's okay. You didn't let that hold you up. You went ahead and made it yourself. And it looks fantastic. I hope you all learned something, and I hope you had a little bit of fun watching the video. We will, there you see I'm using open broadcast. I'm going to stop recording now and say goodbye to you folks.